You are listening to the Cattle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of ZenTek Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from ZenTek Consultants. I am Jim, your technology-oriented and overly talkative host, and with me, as always, is my partner.
It's Rocco.
It's Rocco. See, he doesn't actually have any focus or do anything. He's just Rocco. He's just like a chair. He's there. That's all he does, folks. Sad.
Yep.
He's like, yep. He doesn't even care.
You got a problem with that?
Nope, not even a little bit. I'm okay with it. So, all right. So today, our topic for today, we're doing a special topic today. It's called starting your own business, aka the ZenTek story. And the reason we're doing that is that today is actually a very special day here at the Cattle Call. This is, Rocco, officially our 100th episode. Yay! Yay! Can you hear that? I know I'm playing a little sound effect. There's a little guy going, yay! I just love it. Yay! It's awesome. I don't know if it's coming through on your end, but
No.
it's too funny. But yeah, and in light of our 100th episode, we wanted to do something different than what we normally do, something a little special. And Rocco and I thought we would just talk about how ZenTek as a company and this podcast actually came about and hopefully help other people kind of get started in their own entrepreneurial endeavors, right? Particularly now, we've been seeing a lot of that recently with folks calling in, starting up their own businesses with the Great Resignation and stuff. So yeah, and in format, today's podcast is going to be a little bit different than what we usually do in that, like I said, we don't have a real topic here. We're not talking about a particular, product or a process, and we don't have any talking points outlined. Rocco and I are just kind of, just going to BS a little bit and talk about how we got, ZenTek rolling. How do we get the podcast going? The different problems we face, right? The good, some of the really bad decisions that we've made over the years. So that's kind of where we're going to go today. So this means that Rocco doesn't get to just sit in a corner and sleep while I talk a lot today. So he's got to actually participate for a change. So instead of being a chair today, he's going to be out in the spotlight. So, all right, Rocco. So let's start with this. Let's start talking about the Cattle Call podcast first, right? And how we got that started. And I'm going to start with the thought that, be honest now, you thought that this podcast was a really dumb idea at first, didn't you?
I didn't think it was a dumb idea. I just didn't know, how well it would take off. I mean, who wants to listen to a bunch of knuckleheads, just talking and, but, like anything, it evolved, right? And it evolved and it's gotten to the point where those of you who follow us regularly, I mean, you see, we have, quite a number of industry guests from all different kinds of firms and companies and backgrounds who are interested in coming on and joining us and talking to us. And, I think I'm always pleasantly surprised to hear, out of left field, all of a sudden somebody saying, "Hey, I listen to your podcast,"
It's always surprising, right? Like, wow, we actually have listeners. Who knew?
Yeah.
No, that is exactly.
I wasn't really sure, from the beginning how well it would do. And, it does take time, to put together scripts and to coordinate guests. And, so I was a little skeptical, but, I like I said, pleasantly surprised as to how it's been working out for us. And, thanks to our listeners who continue to listen from week to week. So,
yeah. Now, we definitely appreciate all the folks who listen to this insanity that we dribble out every week. But yeah, to be honest, I mean, I was the same way. I didn't really have huge hopes for it. It was one of those things where, I've got my son is 28, right? He is a podcast fiend. He listens to every podcast under the sun. He's got a whole, massive playlist on Spotify that he listens to regularly. And so do my nieces and nephews. I'm like, you know what? What could it really hurt, right? It was something to put out there, right? A little bit of content marketing to talk to people about, who we were, what we did, and really have discussions in our industry, right? More, we try anyway to keep it focused more on processes and procedures rather than trying to use it as like a sales tool. And I honestly think that has paid a lot of dividends for us. And I think that our listeners like that. We try to stay kind of platform neutral, and we try to be honest with what works and what doesn't work. And we're not just here selling them stuff. So, usually every now and again we do sell them something, or we try to, but it's worked out way better than I thought. I mean, I am always surprised as well, right? I always get on the phone with people on the tech side and doing project work with them, and to get into a class of, 15, 20 people and 3 or 4, I'm like, oh, dude, I love your podcast. I'm like, oh, okay. It makes me feel like a little minor celebrity in my own little world. It's nice.
Well, and it's a casual way for people to listen in on what's going on in the industry. And, it's not a pressure thing, not like they have to do it. It's a lot of people just like listening. And of course, we're not the only ones out there, right? I mean, there's other podcasts in the industry. So it's more of a passive, let me turn on and listen to the radio, or let me turn on and listen to iHeart Music. It's a casual industry topic, focused content that people listen to.
There you go. And it's the kind of thing you can listen to at work, and your boss can't really tell you that you're slacking off. Like, hey, this is focused on what we do. So I guess that's a plus. But yeah, I mean, listen, I would say to anybody out there who's dealing with their own company, and in specific industries and trades, I mean, it really is not a bad way to reach out to your client base and to your peers and do some networking and really, build some relationships. We've actually, like you said, having on, different industry guests, we built some really nice relationships with some really outstanding people in this industry who come on, and once they're on, they're like, that was fun. I want to do it again. I'm always happy to have them back, and I think that's really paid off really, really well for us. And I think it's a good approach, that kind of concept of, when you're dealing in business, to focus on providing some good, important content for your I guess we'll call them clients, and in this case, listeners, providing them something that's worthwhile to them, right? And helping you network with other people who are going to bring, important things to the table. So I think it's worked out way better than either of us ever dreamed it would. So I'm pleased with it. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's take a minute about let's talk about ZenTek, all right? And how we kind of came to be as a business, right? Which is kind of a weird progression there for us. It wasn't, I think, anything that you had planned in your life. So let's just start with the question, right? Why don't you tell folks where did we start out, and what kind of made you be silly enough to agree to being my partner?
Yeah, well, we were both in the Autodesk channel. I mean, I was in the Autodesk channel for a lot longer than you were, Jim, right?
Yep.
And I saw the progression of where Autodesk was taking their partners and making cuts. And we worked for another Autodesk reseller before starting ZenTek, and we worked together. And the writing was on the wall there as to what they were doing, consolidating and merging into another company. And I think you must have approached me, 2 or 3 times, about the idea of starting our own business, and I mulled it over back and forth in my head. Obviously a lot of times, I come from my family members, all 4 children, my brother and 2 sisters, own their own businesses. And, so for me, it was like, well, either I get folded into another company and become middle management here, work at finding a whole new job and starting out, from scratch at a new job, or give this a shot. And, I knew the drive that you had and the motivation and how professional you were in dealing with people. And yeah, it was a scary step, but to me, I said, well, what do I have to lose? I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, right? My wife and I don't have kids. We've been waiting to adopt for many years, but, so it was kind of like, well, give it a shot. I mean, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? It's not going to work out, and you got to go find a new job, you know?
Yeah.
So that was where I, approached things from.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. The reason and the way that I kind of, I don't come from, a family of entrepreneurs, right? I am literally in my entire family, both on my side and my wife's, right? All my extended family. Nobody else owns a business. Everybody works for somebody, right? So it really wasn't a thing that I grew up around. And it's something that it was like in the back of my mind. It was like, oh, someday I'd love to. It'd be great. I think everybody dreams about, opening their own business, being their own boss. But most of us never make that jump because it is really frightening. It's a big undertaking. And the strange thing is, like I said, Rocco and I, we work together. We've been working together for like 10, 12 years now. Both at that former reseller at Autodesk, which was, by the way, an outstanding company. I mean, we had a great time and an amazing team of folks over there. And we actually, it was just one of those things where, Rocco and I worked very, very closely together, right? He was, basically running the entire office and the sales and admin side of things. And I was handling all the, the technical and handling all the tech staff and business contacts with clients and so on, developing work. So literally, I guess pretty much every job that went on in that place, Rocco and I both worked together on it. So we knew each other really well. We worked together all the time. And I actually had gone out to, I guess around like 2014 or so. The company sent me out for a week out to Autodesk University. Right? And that was kind of the beginning of ZenTek, right? I went out to AU and they had a class, one of the presentations they had out there, which was kind of, I was looking to like fill a time slot where I was, didn't have anything that really interested me in the tech side. And somebody was doing a class out there on your work-life balance, right? And enjoying what you do. And the concept was like, look, this is the CAD, the design world. And if you don't really love what you're doing, then you should probably look for something else, right? And that was kind of the whole focus of the seminar. And it was really well done and it was interesting. And I remember on the way back, on the flight back, it was like a 5 a.m. flight, right? A 4-hour shot from Vegas back here to Jersey. I was tired, I didn't want to pull my laptop out and I just had like a notepad that I had taken notes during the webinar, and I was kind of writing things down, and I was going through that in my mind, right? Some of the steps he said, you should kind of, think about these questions. And I was going through and I was just kind of writing down some answers to them. And I kind of came to that realization that I really love what I do. I love the tech side. I love being able to find new ways of doing a thing. Right? Something that people are like, this is the way you do it. I'm like, yeah, but we can cut that in half if we do it like this. That's always been my go-to, right? That's what I do, I think, better than anything I do. And I kind of wrote down to say, I'd love to have my own company where I could kind of decide, what things we do and what's the best process. And I said, how would I call that? I said, I want a company that was focused on like helping people relax. And I wrote down a couple of different names. And the one that stood out on the pad, and I wrote it down, was ZenTek, ZenTek, right? And I like circled it on the pad. And so that's a great dream to have for someday. And then, like I said, I spent, the next 2 years or so, really didn't do much on it, but, working with Rocco, I just, we did everything in that company, right? We were, the boss, fantastic guy, but, he was the owner. He'd show, a couple of hours a day and then be off doing business deals or whatever he was doing. Half the time we didn't know. And, Rocco and I would handle the day-to-day operations, and we were running a company. And that's where I kept going to Rocco. I'm like, dude, first at joking, like, hey, if you ever just want to say, forget it, and we'll move out of here and we'll start our own company. And Rocco would be like, yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll do that someday. I don't think he took me seriously the first couple of times. And then I do remember the one day, and I specifically remember the day Rocco, just, when we were working together, Rocco never left the office. Rocco would bring his little Tupperware bowl of salad every day that he would sit at his desk and he would eat alone while everybody else would go out to lunch. And I was usually busy, so I didn't go out to lunch a lot. And one day it was just Rocco and I sitting in the office. Everybody else had gone out. There was nobody else around. So I was kind of, just pulled my chair around and I was sitting at Rocco's desk and we were chit-chatting. And just all of a sudden he just kind of looked up and went, when you talked about leaving and starting our own company, were you serious? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm absolutely serious. All you got to do is tell me yes, and we'll start making moves. And he just looked at me and he went, I think I might actually be interested. I said, okay, here we go. And then we kind of, Of course, from that point, it became, now we got to go talk to wives and make sure that they're on board. And I think I think it was surprised both of them were actively like, yeah, time to go do that. I was like, at least on my end, and from what you told me, Jamie was pretty positive on the concept from the beginning as well.
Yeah, well, she knew how hard I work and how frustrated I was with with my previous employer,
Yeah, yeah,
and I love both owners, but to your point, it was like I was working till 10:30 at night,
yeah,
and it was frustrating, to see how hard I worked, and at the end of the day, okay, the company was going to be merging, and he wasn't always around, and there were just a lot of frustrations, and it was like, when I'm going to work this hard for somebody else, why not try it?
yeah.
And it's funny because the day that I left my previous employer, the very next morning, I felt like this whole balloon had just like deflated, and in a good way, it just like the amount of stress was just gone, and it was like, oh wow, okay, this is a brand new start,
Yeah,
and it felt great. It
yeah.
really did.
Is amazing. And like, you and I talk about this all the time, right? There is a crazy amount of stress that goes into running your own business, but it's not, there's no anger involved in it. Stress is the same thing, right? I was exactly the same way. The moment we left, the moment we started ZenTek, it was like, oh my God, it was a weight off my shoulders, because for so many years working for other people, not just, at the place you were, but, pretty much every place I ever worked, you work yourself to a point where you're trying to get ahead and you're putting in all the effort and it's not being recognized. And the things that you were promised never quite come through the way they were supposed to. And you seem to get more and more work and more problems with, and you just get to a point where you're just angry all the time because you can't keep on top of all the crazy and the stupid and no one's listening to you about how to fix it the right way, and that all just went away. The stress we deal with, as business owners, it's more in line with, hey, how do we get new clients? How do we make sure they're happy? How do we make sure that our employees are content and taken care of? There are stresses and busy, long days, but I never, almost never anyway, I can't say it's never. Once or twice I've been a little frustrated at the end of the day, but it's rare that I am angry or upset at the end of the day. I'm tired and overworked, because Rocco is a slave driver. But, other than that, I'm good. Yeah, that level of anger stress just disappeared when we went out on our own. So I think it's, a lot better for both of us on our personal life side as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about ZenTek kind of as a business, right? And where we started. And the funny thing is I want to talk about what was kind of the result of our first business plan, right? Based on what we thought we were going to be doing versus what we actually do now. Big difference between where we started off and where we ended up, right?
Yeah, well, first off, I mean, I think that it's super critical to have a business plan.
Yeah.
Right. It's one thing to conceptualize. It'd be nice to, I'd like to, I know somebody who has, but you really got to sit down, whether you have a partner or not, partners or not, and really put together a business plan. And even though you have a business plan, like Jim's saying, that doesn't mean that it's going to go as planned. I mean, but the important thing is to have it documented, to think things through. I mean, I know we reached out to the SBA, right?
They were huge help. Recommend that for everybody. It should be everybody's first stopping point. Go to the SBA. It's free. They've got resources like you would not believe, and their business planning functionality. I don't know that we would have been able to organize and structure ourselves and get things going the way we did without them.
No, and they gave us a whole template to build the business plan from. And, did we follow it to a T? No, but I mean, it definitely gave us the foundation of the house to build. So I, definitely recommend and think that it's critical. And look, we continue to, the first thing we do every January, the first day of every year, is work to tweak our business plan, because it is a document that gives you the foundation, and it's not going to be, you're not going to look back at it at the end of the year and say, okay, this went exactly as planned. That doesn't happen. But again, the idea behind it is that it helps you structure, it helps you point the ship in the right direction. And so it's critical that you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, it is very much like, traveling, folks. If you say, hey, I'm going to go from my house and I want to take a trip to Chicago, you don't just go out and get in your car and start driving, right? You look at a map first. Now, while you're driving, there may be detours and there were unexpected delays and you had to jump to another road because of a snowstorm. That's what it's like. But you got to have a map. You got to have an idea of where you're going before you can get to your destination. So, and it really was vital in everything we do. And we do update it every year. And every year, even each year, we look at back and go, wow, yeah, that didn't quite go the way we planned. But we did get these 2 out of the 5 things we were really targeted on. So not the way we thought we would, but we got there. You just can't. You can't function without that business plan. And I think, one of the other things that we did, and it's funny because, right now it's more common, but it wasn't common, back when we first started ZenTek. I mean, Rocco and I, we made a decision to structure ourselves as a 100% online digital firm. Our idea from the beginning was we were never planning on, having people work in office. We were never going to go visit people on site. Everything we were going to do was going to be digital because we really believe that, in this busy world, particularly in construction and design, being able to do everything 100% online and let people sit in their own offices or in their own homes and work with us was the way to go. And it's funny. That's one of the things that, we really wanted to do. We thought it was important. And the world itself just changed so dramatically over the last few years that now that's commonplace, right? Everybody is in agreement. But at the time, we started off early on, there was actually a struggle. We had a lot of people who were like, we're not doing things digitally. We want trainers and we want, specialists and consultants who are coming to our office to talk to us. We're not talking over Zooms and Teams and things. And now that's like an everyday thing. So, we structured ourselves in that respect. And it's just pure, I don't want to say luck. It was just pure random chance that the world has kind of adapted to that based on some really tough few years we've dealt with. So, the other thing that we really did, I think, that I thought helped us a lot to get going, and really on both the technology and the marketing side, we really focused very heavily on maximizing our technical potential, right? So that we could do things from the technical end that would have been a lot harder if we tried to set ourselves up as a traditional business with, an office and in-place servers and, dedicated IT staff and so on. We went out and we found a lot of really nice tools, right? We worked, with Dynamics 365, we became Microsoft partners. So we got access to a lot of additional software at no cost, right? Exchange Online, things like that, where we could actually work because we were Microsoft resale partners. We could actually get some of their advanced technologies that usually are cost prohibitive, right? We did things like, phone systems instead of going in and, going to, AT&T or Ma Bell and having them come in and set us up with, hardline phones. We went strictly with, internet-based phones, right? With Ring Central. Everything we did, we really focused on making it digital and online 100%, and I think that dramatically saved us a ton of startup money. I mean, I think our startup costs wound up actually being only about 50% of what we estimated they were going to be because we were really, really conscientious about maximizing our potential returns with the right digital technologies. So what are your thoughts along there, Rocco? I mean, in terms of that, what do you think we did right and wrong in terms of, getting us set up in the beginning, right? What was good and what did I completely screw up in the initial business setups?
Not a lot stands out as doing it wrong. I mean, you set up SharePoint from the very beginning, right? So we were able to access folders and, work in real time. I mean, that was done from the very beginning. And, I give you credit for organizing that, but part of part of the credit you get comes from your background, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's
did
what
a
I do.
lot with Autodesk Vault in the back end and over the years, and so you knew how to structure us. And so that was huge. For those of you who don't know me that well, I'm severely vision impaired, and one of the big mistakes we made was, yeah, Zoho looks great. Let's buy Zoho as a CRM system,
And I will
and
say, it's a great CRM system. It was
it
really
is.
easy to use for everybody except you.
Yeah. Yeah, so once it was all set up, and once we got going with it, it's like, Jim, I got a problem here. I can't use this darn thing, and
They
so
have
we had.
zero accessibility options in that program. It's something. By the way, if anybody from Zoho is listening, fix your stuff, man. Great product, but it's just a terrible thing for anybody who's out there who's into software development. Whatever you're doing, web pages, software, anything. You guys need to think through the accessibility. It's a much bigger problem than you all think. That if you don't label the buttons on your page and they just leave them as button 1, button 2 when you're creating apps and websites, people who have vision and hearing and other accessibility issues have no way to access or work with your stuff. Just saying. Something y'all should think about. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
Yeah.
Rocco.
Yeah, no, it's the truth. So, so we defaulted to Microsoft, and look, Microsoft is not perfect, but we certainly have our own challenges with Microsoft. But when it comes to accessibility, I mean, they're definitely at the top, and so we migrated to Dynamics, and we've been on it since. And it's so that I mean, honestly, that's probably the biggest mistake when it comes to setup that I think we made. Everything else, from the phone system to the website, I think we did it right. And, we've since migrated the website from Wix to WordPress,
Mm-hmm.
but WordPress is not cheap, and it requires a lot of skill to be able to know how to set it up. So, even the website, I mean, yeah, our website did not look as good as it does today initially, but I think it's important to realize that not everything's going to be perfect when you get it started. When you start up a business, I mean, you do the best that you can with the budget that you have, and know that, again, you have to set goals. That's part of what you have in your business plan, and that's what was one of our goals. And at some point during one of these business plans was to migrate our website. Um, so I think we did it right from the beginning, Jim. I mean, I can't remember. I can't say that there's something else out there that we totally botched up.
No. I think I would say the two biggest thing. It wasn't even a technology thing in the setup. I think it was, and some of it was just beyond our control. Like I said, we started off with an idea of what type of company we were going to be. In other words, we really saw ourselves in two venues that we were really going to be big in. Number one, because Rocco and I both came from that Autodesk channel, right, in our backgrounds. We thought that's what we were going to do. We thought we were going to be Autodesk partners and sell Autodesk products. And of course, that was a misunderstanding on our part, where they basically, as we were making our stance to build our own company, they just blew up the channel and shut off all partnerships, right? Dealing with like 3 or 4 major guys in the country, and the rest of the little guys were just let go. So yeah, that never happened for us. We were never able to become Autodesk partners. Though I keep busting, guests like Tim Yaris and guys from Autodesk to hook us up and get us back in there, which I'd love to. Big money to be made there. And the other thing is we, because of my background, we were going to focus and be real heavy in the document management world. Right? I have a lot of
Yeah.
background in document management and Vault and ProjectWise and setting up all of that stuff, like I said, which was a big plus for us when I was setting up our SharePoint and shared folder structures. And really that entire concept, that entire industry just died like a year into our, journey here as ZenTek owners. The concept of, that fully organized structured data set, it became obsolete with the advent of cloud-based setups and all of the cloud interaction services, like SharePoint and Google Drive and so on. To just kill that, right? We're filing them. it seemed like a great idea when things were in-house in your server structure. And once everything moved to the cloud, it's like, dude, just make it easy to access. So that whole thing just kind of died for us on the vine. It never went anywhere. So yeah, we had to dramatically shift what we were doing. So I think that would be a misstep. But again, the idea is that they're missteps. They don't put you out of business. You've got to be able to adapt and say, okay, this is not what the industry wants. I thought it was. I was wrong. Right. And then we got to, move on and find, what does the industry want and how do we provide that? And that's literally all business ownership is. 90% of it is looking at what you thought you were going to do and go, well, that didn't work the way I thought it would. Let me figure out something else to do now. That's it. I think that's all we do on a daily basis. That's our job. So, let's kind of sum it up before we take a break here. What in your opinion, Rocco, over the last 6 years we've been running ZenTek, what have you learned, right, that you can pass on to listeners who are looking to kind of make that jump and go out on their own? What's your big words of advice?
You could never stop thinking about ways to improve things. There's always got to be a better way, a better process. You definitely got to be flexible. You definitely got to be willing to work hard and to put in the hours. And if you think it gets easier, it doesn't get easier.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
No, because if your mission is to grow a business, well, yeah, growth is great, but now you've got X number of employees that, it's like having kids, and you got to keep those employees busy and billable and happy and help to meet their goals as well. So it's constantly evolving. You can never stop thinking. You can never stop growing. And, some people might look at that as, oh, crap, I don't want to do that. Well, owning a business is not for everybody. Let's face it. But, owning a business is for a lot of people as well. You got to be driven. You got to like it. You got to have passion, and you also got to be positive, right? You got to have a positive attitude. You can, not only in life, but when you own a business, stuff is going to go wrong.
Happens every day.
For sure. Yeah. And figuring out a way to, to steer the boat to the right when it's going left is just part of the fun.
It is an adventure. I mean, I will have to say that the thing I think that I learned and really had to learn, and because it was something I didn't understand when we first started this, and I thought I did, and I just dramatically underestimated the point, was the importance of marketing. I had like zero marketing background. It just wasn't something that I was ever involved in. I know that, in our previous life, you actually did, a good bit of your work was involved in the sales marketing side. And we got hugely lucky in that, the very first hire that we made was with Anna, who is our director of marketing, who has been with us since day one, essentially. And she's just absolutely brilliant. She's an amazing woman who works probably harder than you and I combined. But really, I had no idea how important that, reaching out to people and convincing people that we are the right, company for them, that we can provide them with services that they need. I was kind of laboring under the false pretense at first that, I'm really good at what I do. We're the best at everything, and people are just going to knock down our door. Yeah, they don't know we exist, and there are 300 other companies telling them the same thing. And I think, particularly, I find like I've talked to a lot of folks over the years here at ZenTek, right, who are starting their own companies. And I think it's a stumbling block for people in engineering, architecture, and construction. The idea that, I'll get one job, I'll do that one job, and then word of mouth, I'll get 20 other jobs because I'll do such a good job. That's not the way it works. It won't work that way. You may be a great engineer, but there are 1,000 great engineers out there, all trying to take the same clients. You've got to get out there. You've got to market. You've got to put your name out there. You've got to do podcasts, right? You've got to do newsletters and blogs and vlogs and videos and everything under the sun just to make people aware that you exist. And I had no idea how much time, effort, and money we were going to have to put into marketing. And like I said, thankfully Anna was here to kind of help us steer those waters. So that was my big
Yeah,
learning curve.
that wasn't so much of a surprise to me, because I come from my education and background has been in sales and marketing, and so that wasn't a huge shock, but yeah, the other thing is that I think the traditional method of selling has changed, and that's one other thing that I think we did right from the very beginning was to hire Anna, and she just works relentlessly. I mean, we couldn't have. I don't think we'd be here today if it wasn't for her
No, no, I
efforts and
agree.
on the marketing end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So I tell you what, let's take a quick break here so we can get into today's sponsor. All right. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about ZenTek, how we've worked over the last few years, and the good and the bad of all things related to it. All right, folks, stand by. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more of the Cattle Call Podcast.
All right, everybody. Today's episode of the Cattle Call Podcast is brought to you by ZenTek Consultants. That's Rocco and I. We're bringing ourselves to you, aren't we nice? So we wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the things that we offer at ZenTek Consultants. In particular, we wanted to talk to you today about our offerings around developing and upgrading your CAD standards. We are here to help you guys with all of your CAD standard needs, from ongoing drafting and design support to block and library development, full CAD standards development, right, CAD version upgrades, really whatever it is that you guys need when it comes to developing, implementing, and tweaking your current CAD standards. Or like I said, if you don't have any yet, we can help you build them from scratch. So Rocco, why don't you tell all the good folks how they can reach out to us and start that conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot of information, people, on our website, ZenTekConsultants.net. That's ZenTek Consultants.net. Or you can give us a call, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@ZenTekConsultants.net.
Ooh, nice. CAD standards from ZenTek Consultants. You're listening to the Cattle Call Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from ZenTek Consultants. And we're talking about who ZenTek is and how we got kind of from a concept of a business out here to our 100th episode. Yay! On this show. I just played the yay sound again, Rocco. I love that thing. It's making me laugh every time I put it. And pretty much today, right, we're not really doing a script show. We're just kind of talking, Rocco and I. And I wanted to kind of hit on some of our biggest troubles and some of our biggest successes, actually, in this half of the show. So I guess the obvious thing to start off for us, Rocco, is going to be the pandemic, right? We started off in 2016, and really, the first year was rough. We did not have a lot of customers. We were not generating a lot of money. We were losing money, no doubt. And then just as we were getting our feet under us, right, the second year we were really like, okay, we're building a client base. We're really doing solidly. We weren't killing it. We're not retiring to the Bahamas or anything, but we were doing well. And then boom, right, we hit 2019 and we got slammed with the pandemic, right? It was a huge kick in the gut to us. So what do you think? I mean, we obviously we're still here. We've made it through, knock wood. How did we survive? What were the steps we took, and what were the lessons that we kind of took away from that? Do you think?
Oh God, it's I don't know. Sometimes time goes by and you kind of forget what you go through. But I mean, for I'll have to keep thinking more here. But for one, right? I mean, the programs that the government put in place were huge in helping us out.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, regardless of your political stance, the paycheck protection program was huge for us, and we definitely, our revenue was down something like 25-30% in 2020 alone, which was nothing in comparison to what some other folks had, and so how many businesses went out entirely. But I think it was huge. And there's a lot of people out there, I'm not going to get anything from the government. What's the point in even trying? And that's a big it's false. There's a reason why the government puts together programs, and you definitely gotta stay on top of what's out there. Even today, to start up a small business, especially if you're a minority business, there's so many opportunities out there and loans and grants that you can look into, um, that are huge. So that's the first thing that pops to mind for me.
Yeah,
What about you?
it was a huge benefit to us. It's funny, like I said, yeah, there is a political aspect to this, and people have their own views on the whole PPP loan thing. Um, and I was actually at a family gathering about 2 weeks back, and woman that I love, she's a wonderful woman, older woman, was going off on the paycheck protection loans. Right? She said, "Oh, it was such a scam, and it was nothing. No businesses ever got any of that money. It all went into the pockets of the giant corporations, and it was all stolen, and it didn't help anyone." And I'm like, "Yo, excuse me." Yeah. There's always for any government program, somebody's putting their finger in the pot when they shouldn't. That's the reality of life, right? And you just got to go and investigate and find them and pull back the money and do those things. The government does. And listen, I spent a lot of years in the military. I know the government inside and out, and it is far from perfect, particularly when it comes to money. But that program, the whole structure of it, was vital to just a huge swath of businesses throughout the country. I honestly don't know that we would be in business today without it. It really did help us bridge the gap and keep us from having to let go of any of our employees. We were able to use that money to make sure that even though we at some points we had months where we were just hemorrhaging cash, it just total losses of money month after month after month for like 6 straight months where it was just nothing but losses, where normally we would have been cutting people, firing people, right? Rocco and I would have had to take pay cuts. It would have been a huge problem. And those paycheck protection loans and the EIDL advances and the SBA loans, all of the government backed and funded programs that were working were of vital import to us. So I think Rocco's absolutely right, folks. Don't necessarily believe all the negative rhetoric that you hear online and in the news. Go out and apply and make use. When the government is putting forward programs to help businesses, and right now they have an immense amount of things available through the SBA and related things for new startup businesses. Go take advantage of those. I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's a lot of headache and a lot of paperwork that goes into those things. It is worth the time and the effort. That's an absolute yes.
And you got to stay on top of it too. I mean, just because you apply, don't apply and just let it go. I mean, it's like anything. You have to be persistent.
Poor Rocco was on the phone with those people 4 times a week for about 2 months trying to get us our money. It's never easy. It's the government. There's all kinds of red tape and hoops to jump through and problems. And we had to refill out forms 6 times. Yeah, it's not easy, but you get the money. You get what you need to help yourself keep going and grow through a bad period. And the great thing is that by the time we hit the end of 2020 and into 2021, things started picking up for us again. The money bridged us through the worst periods of it. And, by that time, I think most companies had kind of finally settled into, the remote worker concept, right? The Zoom meetings, the team meetings. And like I said, what I said in the first half, right? We had structured ourselves that way from the beginning. And I think that bit of random chance of this pandemic and everybody moving to that, where a lot of consultants and technology firms were scrambling to try and catch up, we were already ahead of that. We were surfing that wave for years before it became popular and necessary. So I think that did help us a lot. That was just random chance. What wasn't good planning, So take random chance when it comes too. So that's a definite plus. And look, over the years, and again, things that you live and you learn, right? We've had some bad experiences, just some absolute dismal days here at ZenTek Consultants. I mean, probably the worst one actually happened just last year. Where we had some really bad experience with fraud and theft. It was absolutely devastating. It hit us hard. But so, Rocco, why don't you explain what happened in kind of in an overview and what have we learned from it? What did we have to change up to make sure this doesn't happen to us again?
Yeah, look at and this was unfortunately me who was leading the charge here.
It wasn't just
And
you. It wasn't just you. Part of that is on me for not looking closely enough because I was too busy. I mean, yes, you were the name up front there, but we're both at fault on that one.
yeah, I guess so. But I've been in sales for 22 years, and it's just a sign of the times, right? That how careful you need to be. We were applying to be on the government, to do government work. It's called the GSA schedule, and we got an inbound bid request for hardware for a government agency, and it was an email attachment, and it looked legit. All the details look legit. Um, and so I applied for it, put in a bid, and sure enough, started communicating with an individual, and everything was going well. He even called me and had a conversation, and long story short, he ended up being a fraud. Uh, he's impersonating a government employee, and so we were stiffed out of a little over $30,000.
Yeah.
And there's no way to recoup that money.
No.
So that was you know and you think that you're reported to the authorities and that they're going to jump on it. Well,
We're yet to hear back from anyone.
yeah, they're dealing with this every day. So you really got to be careful who you're dealing with. And stuff is going to happen. Like we said, stuff is going to happen. Good and bad is going to happen when you own a business, and it is about your attitude. Yeah, that was really frustrating and aggravating, and we lost a lot of money, and we're not a huge business. But it's the our accountant is a great guy, and he and I was upset when I first told him. I said, I've been doing this for 22 years and this has never happened. And he says, Rocco, you just move on. It happens. Don't blame yourself. Just move on.
And that's the huge thing you got to take from things like this. Look, at the end of the day, folks, this one hurt us a lot. Like Rock said, we're not a big company, and taking a $30,000 hit, it hurt, But the reality of it is, this was a brilliant scammer. This guy was a horrible human being, but brilliant at what he did. Everything was done on legitimate contracts. It had, it was for like the Nuclear Regulatory Agency. It was on their formal letterhead. The contracts were the standard NRA. Everything looked at, the only thing that was different out of 300 pages of documentation and formal process and government red tape, he altered the email address. And he altered it very, very closely. So instead of going to gov.biz, right, or whatever their email, it went to instead of going to .gov, it went to .gov.biz. It was a small 3-letter change hidden behind the scenes in the email so that it was routing to him instead of the government agency. So, it wasn't like it was a blatant scam thing, like I said. And yeah, Rocco, like I said, you were the guy out in front, and yep, you were the one who took the big hit and the heat for it. But, it was a well-crafted scam that anybody could have fallen for, And like I said, I think what I learned from it more important than anything, I think in a way there was a good item to come out of it, right? And it's particularly true if you're dealing in a partnership. It could have been real easy for me to look at that and say, hey, Rocco, this is your fault, and you lost us money, and hold him responsible. And you know what? That is probably the worst concept that I've ever heard. One thing I think that Rocco and I are really, really good at is realizing that we're both humans. Yeah, this is a big, thing that, stands out for us. But over the years we've been working together, I have made just an absolute ton of stupid mistakes, bad decisions, things that cost us money, cost us clients, cost us wasted time. And Rocco's never given me a hard time. He's like, look, man, you did what you thought was right, didn't pay out. And I try to, extend him the same courtesy, right? You were trying to do the right thing, didn't work out. And that's the reality, I think, of day-to-day running a business, right? At the end of the day, right, Rocco and I are two horses pulling the exact same cart. We're both trying to pull the business forward and grow it and make it, what we want it to be. Sometimes he's going to pull left while I'm pulling right, and sometimes I'm going to go right when he goes left, and there's going to be some friction there. But you can't get mad and hold grudges because they're not doing what you think they should be doing. You got to, and I think this is particularly true for a partnership, but even for your employees, right? When your employees are trying to do something and it blows up in their face, it doesn't make them incompetent. It doesn't make them bad people. They shouldn't be yelled at and screamed at and belittled, and judged for it. As long as people are trying to do the right thing, you got to understand as a business owner, it's going to go bad some days. You just got to roll with that. And, we've had, employees who are like, oh man, I really screwed the pooch on this and I'm so sorry. I understand if you got to, let me go. And I'm like, dude, you made a mistake. Are you going to make that same mistake again? No. All right, we're good. Conversation's over. That's something that I think I've learned from a lot of our bad experiences. From a management standpoint, you can't hold that stuff. You got to leave that go and understand people were trying to do the right thing. And I think that intent is more important than the result. Just my 2 cents. What do you think, Rocco?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, we're all human. Nobody's made perfect. I mean, so the important thing is, obviously, you can't have an employee who's going to keep making the same mistake over and over and over and over again.
Right.
But everybody's entitled to make mistakes, and you can't hold it against them. And managing employees is not an easy task either. That's one thing that I definitely learned over the years. Not everybody works in the same way that you do. Everybody lives imperfect lives, and you got to be flexible. I mean, there's certainly been days, not only at ZenTek, but even in my previous employer as a manager, where somebody calls out sick or something happens in somebody's family, and it's like, God damn it, now the whole day's screwed up. You got to figure it out. You got to figure it out. And people are forgiving. People are understanding. The communication, not only from an internal standpoint with employees, but communication with your customers, with vendors is so important. And it's not, you could get angry with people every day, but, just having a level of respect for people and professionalism for people gets you a lot further than being angry or cursing at somebody or blaming somebody. You got to take a different approach in business than a lot of people take in their own personal lives. And look, I'll go so far as to say, I don't know, maybe because of my disability, I look at life a little bit differently, but I think in a lot of respects, owning my own business has also kind of helped in my personal relationships to not be so critical of people, to give people, to give people a break in life, try to understand that, hey, okay, this person did this wrong, but you got to be flexible with them. They make mistakes, or there's a reason why that happened, So there's definitely benefits of owning your own business for me personally, outside of just owning and running and managing a business.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. One thing I think you said that I absolutely love about the way that we work, and it's something that we actively talked about early on when we were setting, is the idea of honest and open communication, both internally and with clients. Right, internally, it's the way we work here. We don't hide what we make and what our profit margins are. Every one of my employees knows what I'm bidding on every project. They know how much money we're making as a company. They know how much of that is profit. They know how much of that is cost. Right. And I think that's a great way to work. I mean, when your employees know, hey, the owners really aren't making much more than I am. It kind of alleviates, I think, a lot of that pressure of like, oh, they're pocketing millions while I'm sitting here, killing myself. And I think it's really true with clients as well. We're very, very upfront with people. People ask me like, well, all the time, clients, well, how big are you? What kind of background do you have? I'm like, look, dude, we're a small company. We got like 4 or 5 full-time employees, and we deal with a lot of subcontractors. And there's always like a pause. People are surprised. I think they're expecting us to like BS and say, oh, well, we're, huge and we've got all of these people. We're not. We're a small boutique shop, right? We work really hard and we try to give, a lot of personal service. And when something's not going right with a client, right, Rocco and I will get on the phone and go, look, man, you know what? This is not going to work. We thought it would. We told you it would. We'll take the hit. We're not going to charge you anymore, but we want you to know, it's going to take longer. It's going to be, more of an issue for us. We bit off more than we could chew. And like Rocco said, most people, whatever the problem is, even if it's something as simple as, hey, you're supposed to do a class today. Well, your trainer currently has a stomach bug and is driving the porcelain bus in their bathroom. Sorry, you're not getting your class taught today, brother. You're going to have to wait till next week. When you don't BS people, when you just tell them the simple truth. Remember a single case where we've had a problem. People understand. People are just like you. They have the same problems in their business. Don't try to BS your clients, right? Don't try to make yourself sound bigger or better or blame someone else for a problem. When you screw up, just go, look, man, I'm sorry. I completely screwed that up. I had a client just about a week ago who is a great client, just one of my favorite people to work with, who, one of his people sent me an email and it got lost in my shuffle. I was busy. I was crazy. I was going to reply to it, and it just dropped off my radar for like 3 or 4 days. And this guy came back and he was mad. He's like, dude, what, this was an important thing. You didn't respond to it. This is not the kind of service that I expect. And I literally just picked up the phone, called him immediately and said, you know what, man, you're absolutely right. This is 100% on me. I screwed it up. I'll make it right. I'll do whatever has to happen to get this guy taken care of. And he went, well, okay, that's all I want. I just want, no, you're 100% right. There's no excuse for me not to have called him back immediately. That's my bad. That answer cleared the air, made everything fine. It's a simple thing, but yeah, Rocco, you're dead on. That honest communication is the most important thing that we can do here. So, what other stuff? Oh, you know what? The other thing I want to talk about, we've talked about the negatives, right? Let's talk about a little bit of the positive stuff. I think one of the things that amazes me about what we've actually managed to build here at ZenTek is we just have really a much larger client base than I ever thought we would have. We deal with so many clients and so many people all across North America at this point. Again, for a small boutique shop, I never expect us to have the number of clients that we have. And we kind of built that on a real shoestring budget. Again, just to be kind of straight up, like I said, I like to be honest. I ain't going to BS the listeners here either. When Rocco and I started this company, right, I emptied my 401k, which was a total of like 50 grand. And Rocco, being the wealthier of the two of us and actually just the guy who actually saves money instead of throwing it all away the way I do, he just had 50 grand that he could scrape together. And here's where we started. He put up 50, I put up 50. And that was the start of ZenTek Consultants, right? I emptied my 401k. So, we have built, a pretty solid, knock wood, right? A pretty solid business on a pretty low budget to get a company up and running and rolling with there in this day and age. What would you say, right, in terms of like our technology, our sales, our marketing process, what are the things that you think we did best to kind of get us from that shoestring start point to where we are today?
What do we do best? You got to stay up to date on what's going on, what the trends are. But you also got to pave your own road. You can't get sunk into what all the quote unquote experts are saying. You gotta be flexible. You gotta bend the rules a little bit. And I think marketing is huge, right? I think every business is different, but marketing is huge. So I think that probably the thing that we did the best was continuously market, continuously get our name out there, continuously provide good service, and that you're capable of handling, right? And slowly you start to build. I mean, I can't remember we're based in New Jersey, right? And the first time we got a huge construction company in California to work with us. And I was like, really? Where did this come from? And there's no greater feeling. There's no better feeling than closing your first big deal and just being able to grow from there. But marketing is huge, and building relationships is critical, and you can't stop building relationships. I mean, that's just an ongoing thing. To Jim's point, things are going to go wrong, but you got to keep that communication going with people and be honest with them. So I think marketing is probably the big thing that we did right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, without question, that marketing aspect. And like I said, we were very lucky in having a great marketing director to work with us. But, I handle most of the tech stuff here. And I think the good thing that we made the decision on very early on was implementing a CRM system. And, honestly, what does a CRM stand for? What is it? Critical Resources Management? Is that what the acronym stands for?
I think it's customer relationship management.
Okay, I don't even use the system, but I help set it up and research and get it going. And we use Dynamics 365, right? We talked earlier about Zoho and why we got off of that. But what I think is amazing about that, right, is that most small companies, they look at a CRM and they're like, oh, that's for when you're big, right? When you've got 10,000 clients, that's when you need that CRM system. And it was one of our first investments, right? With that initial, startup capital we scraped together, was to put in a solid CRM, because we use that CRM primarily for marketing, right? Of being able to, put in, people's contact information to be able to market to people, to say, look, this guy's, he works at company ABC. They're an architectural firm. They use Revit. We can keep all of the data about our leads and customers and accounts in this one central location, right? And really, really target the marketing so that we're sending people things that are actually of interest to them. And that's really the big thing. You read, like, Rocco said, you don't always listen to the industry experts, right? When you get on and you're a small business, they're going to tell you, oh, you should do LinkedIn and you should, do local networking events, and you could do all of the, and you know what? They're all full of crap, particularly the LinkedIn thing. Rocco, what do I always tell people LinkedIn is?
Something about marketing to marketers for the sake of marketing.
Yeah, it's marketers marketing to other marketers about how to market to marketers. That's what LinkedIn is. It's a waste of your time and money. I hate that thing. Look, and we're on it. We do LinkedIn, and I just post general notices, and Anna, my marketing director, does all of the posting up there. But really, all of their paid services and other stuff, you're wasting time. The best thing we have is direct email marketing, sending people, hey, I have a blog post on how to use Civil 3D. People love that. They're like, oh, this is awesome. I didn't know I could do that. It's something that gives them a positive result on their daily work. When you're emailing
that and it all depends on the kind of business you have, right? I mean, but we've also been more involved with SEO, search engine optimization.
That's been huge for us.
And that's really, really, it's taken some time, but that's really been helping to drive a lot of business and leads our way. And again, when we first started, we didn't do it right. We're not working with the original firm today that originally set us up. But we're working with the right firm now, and we found a way to set a regular flowing budget and, to make little tweaks every month. And so that's been big. I mean, when we first started, Jim, remember we put a ton of money into Google, and it went absolutely nowhere.
What a
waste.
It was
like just putting it into a black hole.
Yeah,
I mean,
we got nothing back for it. And again, because like you said, we didn't start off with the idea of putting the search engine optimization, right? And we've got a third-party company now who reviews our site every month and comes back and says, okay, here are the things you need to change and update and modify. Right. And it's been a dramatic game changer for us. Absolutely. And I also think the other thing you talk about is a marketing budget, setting, as much money as you can afford. Right. into the marketing budget. And like I said, in our case, we were able to just turn it over to Anna, our marketing director, to actually use it in the way that she sees fit. And that, again, I'm a big fan of that too, in terms of working with your people. When you hire people to be your experts in areas, whether it's accounting or marketing or sales, let those people do their jobs. Don't micromanage it, right? Anna is my go-to person. I'm like, Anna, here's how much money you got. Here are the things we're looking to sell and do. Here are our focus areas for this year based on our business plan. How do we get there, Anna? What do we do? And then we work out, here's how we're going to market it. Here's how much money I have to spend. I'm going to put X amount on this, X amount on this. And that's her job. And I don't argue with her on it. When she tells me I need this much money, that's how much money we give her. And I think that's really important. The marketing, we can't stress that one enough. It is a big thing. So, our ZenTek has been growing. We're growing pretty steadily at like a 25 to 30% increase year over year, which is outstanding. But like I said earlier, right, we're not really the company that we envisioned we would be when we started out. We do a completely different set of services and skills than we thought were going to be our primaries. In terms of what was the biggest surprise, I guess, that came up along the way, Rocco? What was the thing that you were like, oh, did not see that coming, but it worked out well for us?
I mean, I don't know, not a lot stands out. I guess training comes up first, right? I mean, when we started doing our classes, we did them in 2-hour sessions. And I think it was my idea. I said, hey, why don't, the 2-hour sessions seem to be going well. What if we started doing them as 8-hour classes and breaking them out into 2-hour sessions? And you were on board with that idea from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but we just didn't know, and so we tried it, and sure enough, it's taken off, and it still continues to do well, and people just liked the concept of a 2-hour class once a week versus, having a guy standing here for 8 hours in front of you in a physical classroom, being pulled out of production for a full day, doing all this data dump, in one day and walking away. So that's definitely one thing that stands out that I wasn't sure how well it would work out, and it works.
Yeah.
And it is working well.
Yeah, I think worked way better than our original, class concept. We did a lot early on, right? We tried with, maybe we'll do like short, hour long classes for like $10-15, and we'll get thousands of people to do that because it's less price. Now, I guess, one of the surprises for me is that, particularly, I guess, in the consulting space where we live, it's just a reality of, I guess, how people think. And it's something that we learned along the way, is that people actually put a value on how expensive something is. We found that, the low cost 2-hour class or 1-hour class did not sell all that well, because people are looking and go, if it's only like $40, it's got to be crap. Versus, our 8-hour classes are like $425 for a student, right? And people go, okay, well, that's a fair price for an 8-hour engagement. That's it's not cheap, but it's fair. And you know what? These guys probably know what they're doing if they're doing full 8-hour. And they've got hundreds of 8-hour classes on a lot of topics in this industry. These guys must know their stuff. So yeah, I think it absolutely was a bit of a surprise that, charging more and doing a longer engagement has worked out way better than where we originally started with that. I think on my side, the thing that surprised me the most has been how much we've grown on the consulting side, right? And doing the services and project work for people, right? Helping them develop their CAD standards and helping them implement Procore and, doing, Bluebeam custom tool sets, or all the things that we do on a daily basis. That really wasn't, I kind of started off thinking that, our big sellers were going to be, number one, our software sales, right? Because like I said, we came from the Autodesk channel, and that was what we drove in the place we worked together, prior to this. And it was just always my thought that our big push and our big thing was going to be, a software reseller with some training. And then, now and again, we'll get these service jobs, and it hasn't worked out that way. just the way that we've grown over the years, I guess, because of our capabilities on the technology side and working with the design and construction world with our staff. We do just an immense amount of that service and support work, way more than I thought we would do. It kind of, it's outstripping, both the kind of the training and the software combined. So I wasn't expecting that. I really was surprised by it. I mean, it's a good surprise, but it definitely didn't play out the way that I thought that was.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So one last little topic here, I guess, before we kind of wrap it up for today, because this is a really long podcast, longer than most of our podcasts. I think we're over an hour now. We've been BSing. So last topic here, right? So you just kind of sum it up, right? I mean, like I said, it was a big risk going out on our own, right? It took a lot of, chutzpah to go out there and really, make that leap and like I said, empty my 401k and do all the things we've done. So what do you think, man? What was it worth the risk of going our own way? Right? All the stresses we've faced, the fears we've faced, the problems we've run into, the long hours, endless working weekends. If you had it all to do over again, would you still say yes when I asked you if you were interested?
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but you know what? There's something to be said about a partnership too, and finding the right person or persons to work with as well. I mean, for me, I've had discussions with a number of people, and oh God, I wouldn't be able to partner with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
But it's also not easy doing it on your own. Sometimes you think you have the right answers to things, but you really don't, or something. A lot of times you're unsure. Even as partners, a lot of times we make decisions together and we look back together and say, well, that was a dumb decision.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
But what's the saying about, two heads better than one?
Mm-hmm.
And I if I had to do it again tomorrow, I still wouldn't do it alone. And, I look at a partnership too as, and again, I think I'm not trying to make myself sound any better, but I think I have a little bit of a different outlook on life, particularly because of my disability. But I look as at our partnership anyway, as like a marriage.
Yeah.
There's going to be good days. There's going to be bad days. And there are plenty of times that I get angry with Jim and Jim gets angry with me.
At least once a week.
But at the end of the day, like Jim said earlier, we're both after the same mission here. We're both out to grow and to live our lives, and we'd like to be millionaires, billionaires, but hello, we're just trying to live our lives. We're trying to live our lives as best we can, and to be honest and respect people, and just to grow. And I think Jim and I have a huge respect for one another, and that's not everybody has that. It's just big to have the right attitude and to be flexible with one another, and to understand that you're really after the same goals. And I'll pat ourselves on the back that I think we're both good people. We're not out to backstab one another or anybody else out there. I mean, we're just trying to live an honest life. That's
yeah,
bottom line.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, and I think your analogy in a partnership as a marriage is absolutely dead on. Look, at the end of the day, we spend way more time together than we do with our wives. That's just the simple reality of it. You and I are together 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, constantly on the phone, constantly talking, emailing back and forth. I mean, we're there's no one else that I spend more time or talk to more than you. And that is vital, right? And I think if you're looking at a partnership, one of the things that you have to do, it's very much like a marriage. You got to make sure that the person that you're working with, that you're going to partner with, kind of looks at life the same way you do. And this is, like I said, Rocco and I were friends, and we worked together for a long time before we decided to start ZenTek. And the one thing that, I had an immense amount of respect for Rocco. He's the hardest working person I've ever met. know how, is as honest gets. Rocco, he's the kind of guy who finds a $5 bill on the ground. He's going back into the store to see who lost it. You know what I mean? It's that type of person he is. And I try to be that way myself, so we have very similar outlooks on life and the way that we approach people and how we deal with people. So we don't butt heads a lot in terms of, how we're going to approach things. And I think that's important. But I think the other thing that is really important in a partnership is that Rocco and I have very different skill sets. And I'll be very flat and honest, and I've said this to my wife and a million other people. I could not have done this without Rocco. Literally the most important person here. I have technical skills. I am, I talk a lot. I'm great with clients and customers, telling a joke and having a conversation. I'm personable, and I'm really good at the back end, finding solutions to weird problems. It's what I do. It's what I bring to the table. Rocco is organized. Rocco is structured. Rocco makes sure everything gets taken care of. He runs the admin level. You know what I mean? He makes sure that the stuff that I forget every single day, he reminds me, don't forget you have to do this. Don't forget you have to do that. I am terrible at that kind of stuff. I really am. I have zero skill sets in that area, and it's a perfect balance, right? You got two people who want the same things, who have the same kind of personalities, but different skill sets. That's what you're looking for in a partner. You balance each other out really, really nicely. And I think we've been very lucky in that respect. And I think, same thing. I would do this again in a heartbeat. I can't even imagine. It's kind of one of my worst nightmares that at some point things go, completely belly up and we have to go back into the workforce. I can't imagine at this point in my life having to work for someone else or with someone else other than Rocco. It'd kill me. I'd go nuts. Look, man, at the end of the day, owning your own business, starting your own company, right? The workload is immense. If you think you're going to go out and say like, oh, I'm going to work, 4 or 5 hours a day and I'm going to take off Fridays to golf and I'm going to be a millionaire in a year. Yeah, you're wrong. That's never going to happen. I've never known a single person that has happened to. Maybe after, 25, 30 years, maybe that's in our future someday where we can work 3 or 4 days a week and golf on Fridays, Rocco, but it ain't today. That's for sure.
No.
As of right now, like I said, Rocco and I are in here till, I'm in the office usually till 7:30, 8 o'clock every night. Rocco is in till 10, every night. We work Saturdays, right? This is, we're in here, we're recording this podcast. It's a Saturday morning. Here we are, right? And I got work to do after we're done recording. It's just the way that it goes, right? That's how you build a business. And there are immense amounts of stress that come with that, right? It can be overwhelming and overloading. And you have to be careful of your own health and issues, to go along with that. But I will say that it's, and I think I talked a little bit about this in the first half. It's to my mind, it's a healthier type of stress. It's the stress of wanting to do better, of trying to grow something. You know what I mean? It's not, there's zero anger in it. There's no frustration in it. It's just the stress of long hours, lots of work, having to make decisions. And for me, one of the big stresses, and this is something I didn't realize I would feel as much stress over this as I do. And Rocco, I don't know if you feel the same way. I stress a lot about our employees. It's really important to me that these are people who are kind of dependent on you and I for their livelihood, for their families, right, for their kids' futures. I didn't realize it was going to be as stressful for me to make sure that they're taken care of as it is. It wasn't something that ever really occurred to me about it. I was like, oh, employees, you hire them and they work and they do their work and you pay them some money and they go away. I didn't realize that we're kind of responsible for making sure that things go well so that, they can take care of their families and their home mortgages and things.
Yeah, I don't worry about that. I mean, I guess I knew what I was getting into from that respect. And, we're fortunate that we have very good employees working for us. And, I mean, you got to weed through the good and the bad. That's just the way that it is. And, you got to realize that not everybody's going to stay with you forever either. I mean, people have different ambitions and goals and, but I think we try our best to respect people and to treat people right. And, you're not going to make everybody happy. At the end of the day, you're just not. You do the best that you can. And that's that, you know.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So
I like it. All right. So with that said, folks, if you are still here and listening to the longest podcast we have ever done, God bless you. We appreciate it. And now you have the full story of ZenTek and the cattle call and how we all came to be and how we got here. And it's 100 episodes in the clan. And I hit my little yay button again, just because it makes me laugh. And hopefully you guys will hang around and listen to us for another episode or another 100 episodes. All right, guys, we appreciate you taking the time today. We hope you all have a wonderful time, and we will catch you in the next episode of the Cattle Call Podcast.
All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of ZenTek Consultants. That's Rocco and I. ZenTek Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. ZenTek strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to ZenTek?
all right, yeah, you can reach out to us through ZenTekConsultants.net. You can email us at sales@ZenTekConsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.